What's up, everyone? This is In Camp Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Hepler. Thanks for tuning in. Today on the show, I have a good friend of mine. You probably have heard of him. He's a big part of the Meat Eater crew. He co hosts the Wire to Hunt podcast. He's the host of the Foundations podcast and the Foundations podcast on Cal's Week in Review. I think he's written for every hunting publication known to mankind, and I think you'll really enjoy hearing from him today. We're talking about Mr. Tony J. Peterson. In the episode, we get to dive into some of Tony's passions that are outside of whitetails. The other interests have really carved Tony into the deer hunter that he is today. So, in the first part of the episode, we'll be discussing bird dogs, and at some point, we make a turn about how Tony got his start in the industry in bass fishing and writing for fishing publications. But what's cool about the second half of the conversation, it really merges with deer hunting, and we came up with a really good blend of how other interests in the outdoors can relate to the next and really help you hone all of your skills, plus bring you a ton of fun in the meantime. If you like what you hear at the end, I'd love to get your review and rating, whether you're listening on Apple or Spotify, so thanks in advance for that. But enough blabbering and time to get to the show. This is In Camp Podcast.
And I'm like, fall down, and he started feeding.
What
and
the
then
heck?
I watched him for a half an hour, and he just fed, got with the group, and went off and roosted. I went and looked for him last night and blew him all out of the roost. So I don't know if I'll see him tonight or not, but they're kind of locked into this area.
Okay.
But I'm like, I don't know what to do. Just screwed it up, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to at least go get eyes on him tonight, see if he made it.
Yeah, hopefully you didn't get into some thick stuff.
Man, the farm that I shot him on is being developed. And so There's only about 80 acres of undeveloped stuff left, and it's half of it is swamp. So they're very predictable. I've only been hunting there. I guess I took my daughter out there Saturday night and she shot a bird. I sat all day on Easter, and I think I saw every bird in the place.
Huh.
There's just not that many of them, and they kind of come and go in the same spot. So I think I'll see him. I did this 4 years ago. I hit one too low, and he disappeared on me for 3 days, and then he came back.
Yeah.
And I never got a shot at him again. I hunted him the whole season, but I kind of think this bird, if he made it, at least maybe not tonight, but I'll get confirmation within a couple days.
Yeah, that's good news.
So I'll go hunt him and see. But it was just a freaking rookie mistake, buddy.
Well, they happen to all of us. We always talk about those. So your kiddo shot a couple birds though, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Both on the opener?
Well, we opened last Wednesday, so I think Joe shot on Thursday and Lila shot on Saturday. But it's been, I don't know. I mean, I killed one in Nebraska earlier, did a little run out to public land there and had a good hunt. And they were callable, but here has been really weird. Joe's bird, I called that bird in, but he was super cagey. Still came in. Lila's, they held up at 40 yards and, wide open. So I'm like, if you're comfortable, take it. And she dumped him, which was good, but they just big birds, big spurs, and they just wouldn't commit. And then last night I called in 10 of them. I can call in the hens like crazy, but I called in a little flock of 10 of them, and it was like pulling teeth to talk those birds in. And part of the reason I screwed up the shot, 3 jakes came in, I let them go because there was 5 hens and 2 strutters. And then those 2 strutters kind of just skirted the decoys at 25 yards, and they looked like they were going to come right in. And I'm like, well, I got to shoot them now or they're going to be gone. One of those deals. And I just pulled it a little bit, and stupid. I like to shoot them at 7 yards, not 25,
Yeah, especially with a bow.
Right.
So on the other end of the line, people, we have Mr. Tony J. Peterson, who needs no real introduction. But you might need a little one today, because we're going to talk. We'll probably talk about deer a little bit. I'm sure it always comes down to something about deer. But what people really don't know about you as much, I think they're starting to understand the dog thing, because you love dogs, you love bird hunting, and you freaking are a bass fishing fiend. That's what you started out doing, right?
Yeah. I mean, professionally, yeah. I started out as a fishing writer, but I love it all, man.
Yeah.
I love it all. I mean, I always think this is probably a terrible thing to say, but if CWD wiped out all the deer, we'd just find something else. We'd all be hunting trophy squirrels or some shit. I don't know, but Yeah, I just love it all, but I really do love I like anything that I can fish for that'll hit a top water. I'm usually a pretty big fan, and then the dog thing is just something fun, just special.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's really what this podcast is going to be about. But that's kind of my goal, is to make sure that I'm staying well rounded and talking about everything, because I don't just love one thing. Obviously, deer hunting is a passion of mine, but man, I like it from bluegills to birds to whatever I can chase is fun. And there's a season for everything. I kind of think, well, you actually had a really big influence on me in that direction, because I was always like that growing up. I like to hunt everything, fish everything. And then I went really hardcore, like, I only bow hunt, which wasn't the case. I still did everything. But you've helped me to remember that there's a lot more fun to be had. So we're going to talk about some of that today.
Sure.
What what did you what was your I guess what was your first dog?
So I couldn't
Well,
have a dog growing up. So
yeah.
my mom was like, that was a hard no. And so I ended up, had a whole bunch of buddies who had dogs. I had one buddy that went into the military, so I kind of sort of adopted his dog while he was gone.
Yeah.
That was a Springer. I had buddies that had Goldens, but my first dog that I got was a Golden. Got it
Uh,
as soon as I got married, as soon as we moved into our house, and she was a lovable idiot who was a very mediocre hunter.
yeah.
And she taught me a lot, right? I did everything with that dog. I trained her to pheasant hunt, duck hunt. Really, I guess I'll phrase this a different way. Owning that dog, even though she just didn't have the drive, like the dogs I have now, the drive is just totally different. Better blood, better everything. But that dog got me into duck hunting because I had never duck hunted before, and I had a retriever who, to her credit, she loved to retrieve anything. So she wasn't great at like ranging out and kicking up pheasants or grouse. She did it, but it wasn't like that just single-minded pursuit of the dogs that I have now. But anything you asked her to retrieve, she would retrieve. So I started just bringing her along. I mean, I'd bring her along. We would shoot snowshoe hares in, northern Wisconsin. She'd be hanging by your side, and then you'd send her out and she'd go dig those hares out.
Oh,
I
cool.
started duck hunting with her because she would sit by your side all day long and retrieve.
Uh-huh.
And I had a lot of public that I'd scout for deer up here in the suburbs of the cities, and I would see wood ducks and teal and some patternable ducks. And well, I don't have access to the upland hunting that I want, but I'm looking at all these birds I can hunt.
Yeah.
And so, and when you have a dog like that, you're like, I got to do something with them. And then she was the first dog I trained to shed hunt. And, at that time I didn't have kids. I was like a very unsuccessful freelancer. So I had a lot of free time, and I did everything with that dog. And so I really kind of, she died at 6 years old, bad genes.
Uh,
It was rough. Taught me that lesson too, like get the right bloodlines. But it was just a nice time in my life to have her as a companion to just do. I just went so hard into so many different things, and because of her, it sort of expanded my outdoors world in a way that it's never contracted since. Everything that she kind of like I got into because of her has
uh-huh.
stuck with me, and I still do it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I love just taking my little dog on walks scouting, but it's amazing what more you'll do because you have a dog with you, or that places you'll go because, oh, the dog's over there. Might as go, go over that direction. But you primarily are hunting over flushing dogs, yeah?
Yeah. I've never owned a pointer. I think maybe in two dogs I might. The next one won't be. I'll have one more lab here coming maybe next spring.
Oh yeah.
But I think, with the kind of hunting I have access to, and it just my interest in training, I wanna mess with a pointer. So I think in two dogs that's what I'll be running. But right now I like flushers, and there's a pile of reasons for that.
Yeah. I always had labs growing up, and that was my last dog. And there, the training is a lot different. Just what they do. You add the aspect of if you're training with pigeons or whatever, trying to get them to point. I mean, you don't have to teach them to do it, but they're excitable in the beginning. That part's different. The way they range is different. Like a lab, my lab was always close. She, 50 yards max,
Yep.
Pointers are like, peace. It's
Well,
like,
right. I mean, I literally was writing about that this morning, doing an article on pointers versus flushers and which
mhm.
is the better choice. And it really is, like pointers are they play independently, right?
Yeah.
You don't work with them to find the birds. They go out and do it. And
Yep.
then you walk in, and that history, it colors all of the training and the interaction. Now you take flushers like Labradors, and they've been bred to work with us and look us in the eyes and check back and stay close. And there is no, if the teamwork thing isn't there between you and them, then
Uh-huh.
it's a train wreck.
Yeah.
And so it's a different thing. And I think pointers are inherently a little more difficult to train because of that, just to get really good behavior out of them. And so I look at a lot of people and I go, people will be like, I love GSPs or I want an English pointer or whatever. It's like, that's great. They're great dogs. But are you qualified to train it? Are you going
Yeah.
to get that dog on enough birds and work it enough to do that? Or is it, 99.9% of the time a house dog that you need maybe a little bit less horsepower or you need a little bit of help training it, and the retriever side of things, you go get a dog that has good retrieving desire and you coax that out of them and really kind of massage it when they're younger, you have that built-in reward system forever. And so if you're not a super confident trainer, which a lot of people aren't,
Hmm.
having that reward to offer up for certain behaviors it's so beneficial. I mean, you can bring so much out of a dog that way.
Yeah. All right. So as far as rewards go, are you a like a physical reward like food, or are you like big on praise?
Praise and retrieves. I mean, everybody, there are different schools of thought on treat training.
Uh-huh.
And I think when you bring that 8-week-old puppy home, that's your option and it's a
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah.
And so, maybe 8 weeks to maybe 4 months, something
Yeah.
like that. I mean, it'll vary by the dog a little bit, but you bring a puppy home and they don't care about you. They
Right.
care about other dogs. We love them, but they need a different reward. And
Right.
that treat training, just with a handful of kibble, you can unlock so much with that dog so fast.
Yeah.
The basics of obedience and just developing a little eye contact because you can get their attention.
Uh-huh.
And you can't, you try to praise a puppy and they don't care at all. Like they want to
Yeah.
bite you, they want to get away. Like
Right.
doesn't matter. And so there's a window there that's really important. And
Right.
I treat train with that, but then, you want to phase that out. And that's one of the reasons I just like retrievers so much is because if I can, obviously they love to work for you. So praise is huge. But for most of the dogs that I get, they want to bring something back to you.
Yeah.
Antlers, bumpers, birds, sticks, whatever. They want to retrieve something.
Yeah.
And so you can build that into every aspect of steadiness training, recall, anything. And it just works.
Yeah. That's one big difference between a pointer and a retriever too. I'm with you on your school of thought with shed hunting. It's really a visual thing. But retrievers, like you said, they don't care what it is, they'll bring it back. Pointers are not. You have to make them want to retrieve. If
Right.
I'm out in the backyard, my little dog will retrieve all day long. But out in the field, if I throw something, he'll bring a bird back, no problem. If I shoot a bird, he'll bring that back. But if I'm retrieving with like throwing something for him in the field, he's like, no, we're out here to look for birds, man. And we'll find sheds and he'll pick it up and he'll drop it and then be like, okay, on to the next thing. But I think um, the other thing too is the flusher versus pointer debate. There are pointing dogs that maybe aren't quite as much of a powerhouse, and that's probably like where you need to do your research as far as pointers go, because the dog I have is a French Brittany. He's like the French version of a Brittany, and they're a lot more laid back in the house. But it kind of translates to the field. They don't range quite as far, and he does check in a lot more than other. I've hunted with my buddy has a couple GSPs, and they don't check in quite as often,
Right.
and they're out there a little further. So it's possible, but it is very very different than the retrieving game. Um, so for training. you're talking about obedience. We all know you need to teach a dog sit, stay, come. Those kinds of things are super important, especially in your backyard. But what do you think are three foundational skills for bird dogs as it pertains to a hunting dog, not just any dog?
Well, I mean, I think that I think if you look at bird dogs, maybe not much as much in the pointer side of things, but steadiness and recall. And I guess I shouldn't even say that about pointers because you need them to honor a point.
Mm-hmm.
But steadiness and recall. I mean, anything that's unnatural, right? It's natural for if I go get a good well-bred lab, it's very natural for that dog to follow a scent and try to, a bird's going to fly and it's going to like it. That's I don't have to train them to do that. They just
Right.
do it, right?
Right.
They just if most of them have that natural hold and carry, so they want to pick something up and carry it around. I can train around that because you know, there's a little bit more to that, but generally you're starting with a pretty good base there. So it's
Mm-hmm.
natural. When you have recall, which is just getting a dog to come back to you, totally unnatural. They don't want to do that, especially when they hit a certain stage where it's like that teenage velociraptor stage.
Yeah.
The world's more interesting than you are. I know what you have to offer, right? And so recall is huge. Like it
Mm-hmm.
just is. And then steadiness, not having a dog breaking, having a dog that you can place or having a dog that you can heal that's going to wait till you release them.
Mm-hmm.
So unnatural. Like
Yeah.
they will test your boundaries on that just nonstop. And so those two things, like for me, a lot of the stuff you can treat train a puppy to sit at 8 weeks. I mean, it won't be set in stone yet, but they can learn those basics pretty quick, like way quicker than a lot of people think. But to get that puppy to stay or to wait to go eat its food or
Mm-hmm.
to offer you some kind of unnatural behavior is a different thing. And so those are the things we're always fighting against, right? You think about you have an issue out in the field with your bird dog, most of the time it's because it won't come back. It goes too far
Right.
out because it's more interesting out there than it is
Right.
closer to you.
Yeah.
You get into the duck blind or a duck boat and you need a dog to sit there and wait while you shoot and while you call and while birds hit the water and maybe your buddy's dog goes first on a retrieve and it's super exciting. That is a skill that has to be taught and reinforced over and over and over again because it's just so unnatural. So I would say those two things. And then I would just say I'm kind of leaning this way more and more with dog training, and this comes from people like Jordan Horrock and some of these other dog trainers who I know who are just like they kind of like they haven't really reinvented the whole thing, but they look at it differently. And if you look at the dog training world, right, some of these old guard dog trainers, they have a very specific like point A to B. You do this, then the dog does this. You do this, and
Mm-hmm.
the dog does this. Or if you want to get this behavior out of a dog, here's the 7-point strategy for doing it, and it works. And some of the newer trainers are like, well, individual dogs, like you can't plug them into a template.
Right.
You as the person who spends the most time with your dog has to learn your dog and go, does my dog get bored after 3, tosses of the bumper in the yard? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That might be different than somebody else's dog who would do that 25 times in a row and the tail's going nuts. So
Right.
there now, if you're talking about training steadiness or something, you have vastly different dogs. Might be the same breed, might be the same breeder, and yet you have these two dogs that vary wildly in their personality. And so just learning your dog and how your dog learns and what it can tolerate and what it can't and when it shows up for work and when it doesn't is
Mm-hmm.
huge. Like we kind of generalize them, and they're not all, every GSP is different, right?
Right.
Like every lab is different and nobody has a better chance to learn that dog than us. And
Right.
so I think consciously trying to figure that out and how to get the most out of your dog and ask for those behaviors is huge.
Yeah. I think it's like breed driven too. Sometimes I talk to friends about labs, and unless you're looking for bloodlines, like you said, the bloodlines are super important for hunting dogs because they already have it in their genes to do that. But a lab is America's most popular dog. Getting my old lab had drive because I took her out all the time, but she wasn't from a hunting line. She was great. She lived for 14 years. She had a couple of health issues, nothing crazy, but she could have been a really good dog had she been from a different bloodline, I think, because you already have that built in. Like you said, every dog's different, but the breeding varies so much that you have a lab that it's like puppy mill type thing, and but the dogs look good. The mom and dad look good, like good dogs, and everything's clean or whatever. But if they're still from a line where people aren't like they're literally just breeding those dogs and not spending time with them and drilling things into that bloodline, they vary so much. And that's one nice thing about hunting dogs, or if you have somebody that's like, yeah, well, I hunt with the dogs that I'm breeding, they have something into them at least.
Right. I mean, we we kind of try to dumb this down. Labs are probably the best example there of how we focus on aesthetics. Right?
Yeah.
Like I want a red lab, I want whatever color, I
Right.
want a big one, I want a little one, and that should be about ninth on the list.
Yeah.
And this is what I know. I know this gets like intimidating quickly, but those bloodlines, they're if you want a badass bird dog, they're everything. Like
Uh-huh.
you want, I'll just give you an example. I like so much drive that it's going to drive my wife crazy. I want a dog that will just work and work and work and work because I just like that. I like training them. I like hunting with a dog that is just not going to become a bootlicker after 3 hours.
Uh-huh.
And I know that if you train them right, you can dial that back in the house and in the situations where you don't want to, but I can't put that in them. They're born with that. And
Right.
then, I mentioned with my golden, if you have a dog die prime age because of genetic issues,
Right.
it really stings, man, because you're like you supported this shitty breeding,
Yeah.
and now you're suffering, and you're starting over with a dog that you thought you had 6 years left of, and you have none.
Uh-huh.
And so not only those bloodlines are important for the hunting drive skill, but you're also you can also find dogs that are going to be really healthy with the genetic
Yeah.
checks. Um, they're going to be Some of them are going to be really good problem solvers, which is it's we don't really think about that stuff, right? But if you
Uh-huh.
take a dog that comes from lines that have field trial champions and master hunters mixed in there, those dogs can't be dumb. They're just not going to be, right? Like
Right.
they're like if you had you know, a national chess champion marry one of the top neurosurgeons in the country, their kid's going to be smart most likely,
Yeah.
right? Like
Right.
just it's just how it works. And if you look at drive or looks or whatever, I want a dog that's going to hit the ground and work with me to solve problems and understand that relationship and look to me and go, I looked for that bird here and I can't find it. What's next, boss? Send
Yeah.
me in, or what are we doing? That stuff's just crazy important. And we look at, breeds in generalities, right? Like, oh, all labs will hunt, or all Goldens, or all GSPs. And it's like, man, that blood is so important.
Yeah. That being said, how do you feel about when people are hunting with mutts? Will you go?
Well, I don't hunt with a lot of people anyway
Yeah.
because I don't want to. Uh,
Yeah.
I like, in all honesty, I actually really just hunting solo or with a buddy or two. But
Sure.
I would hunt. I don't care what people want to do with their dogs. If somebody gets a mutt and that dog likes to retrieve and they want to go out and do it, that's great. I think you should give dogs a good life. I think
Right.
that's one of the reasons to have them is not just because they make our life better, but it's fun to facilitate cool things for your dog too.
Yeah.
And so I don't care what it is. I know people get really hung up on like, my identity is this kind of dog or that kind of dog or whatever. I'm like, I just love dogs. And I
Right.
specifically working dogs. Like if a dog has a job, it's just cool to me.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a little golden doodle too. She's got a job. She keeps my little girl entertained.
Right. Right.
So, but it's kind of funny because I understood that they were supposed to be a little on the energetic side, and she is not. She likes the couch. She does not like to go on off leash walks. She'll go on a walk, but she doesn't really need one. It's kind of sometimes it's relaxing, but sometimes you're like, can we get out? We took them on the boat, and they were both not like he was like, what's all this about? And she's like, get me off of this thing.
Didn't
She
like it,
just
huh?
no, not at all. Um, so birds, you're mostly hunting pheasants with your dogs, or what else are you doing?
Uh, I love pheasants are my favorite thing. Wild pheasants. We do a lot of We hunt a lot of late season birds on public land, and
Yeah.
it's my favorite time in the outdoors every year.
Yeah.
I really like it. But spent a lot of time in the North Country, Wisconsin, doing grouse and woodcock. I do some of that in Minnesota too. Uh, Still duck hunt when I can. The hard part for me is, the deer season it just eats up so much of your time. So,
Sure.
the early part of grouse, the early part of ducks, is just really tough for me. And then, once the back half of November hits and I can get out of a tree and go follow my dog around, I mostly go pheasant hunting, but I've hunted quail with them. I've hunted prairie chicken, sharpies, headed out west.
Nice.
I just I like walking behind a dog and shooting stuff out of the air, buddy.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite if you're going out of state?
A favorite state or a favorite bird?
Favorite bird?
Man, prairie chickens are so fun.
Yeah.
Sharpies are fun. It's interesting because I've the quail thing. I grew up reading about it. I grew up hearing about it. I've hunted quail in a couple states and killed a fair amount of birds on public land in places where people are like, you can't find a wild bird anymore. I'm like, well, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
we found a whole bunch of them. Uh, I know they're not nearly as prevalent. I mean, the quail is a rough situation,
Yeah.
but it just didn't, and part of it is because I'm running a flusher, right? Like it just
Right.
didn't, I thought I was going to just be in love with it. And I was like, it's really cool, but I'd rather go hunt other stuff. And so traveling out of state for me is, my number one goal is always roosters if I go somewhere, but
Sure.
prairie chickens are really cool, really fun. And if you get into a place with a lot of sharpies, it's kind of like mule deer hunting, right? Like it's part of what you're after and part of where you're after them that makes it so special.
Yeah, I think that's one of the coolest that for me that's one of the most alluring things about birds. Here it's everything's stocked mostly stocked pheasants. I think people would probably argue there might be some wild pheasants, I don't know, but it's mostly like mixed grasses, different stuff like that, hedgerows, this kind of thing. I haven't done an out of state bird hunt yet. I'm hoping to go maybe to Iowa to do some wild birds this fall. But it's so cool to see all the difference because I know you've talked about it before and you're hunting a lot of marshland kind of stuff and cattail sloughs and ditches and this kind of thing for pheasants. But also seeing that the prairie kind of stuff is really neat. You're hunting woodcock in timber and grouse in timber, and people do the chucker thing up in the mountain. That's something I'd really love to do. And it's not. I mean, if I'm driving 30 hours to shoot a bird, it's not because I'm going to shoot a bird.
Right.
You're going
Right.
to have you're going
But
to
I
have a
mean,
good time.
that's one of the things about just doing lots of stuff is I have like weirdly fallen in love with cattail sloughs, and I've been messing around in cattail sloughs a long time. Like where I
Yeah,
live, that our deer use them like crazy, right? So they've
yeah,
always been sort of a kind of a pain for me because they're just not that easy to hunt and they're not that easy to navigate. But pheasant hunting in them is a different thing, especially when we're froze
right.
up here, which a lot of times we are by the time I'm hunting them. But it's like this environment that you just look at and you're like, oh, it's just like mono habitat, pain to walk through, kind of sucks, whatever. There's not much in there. And then you get in there and you realize there's all these soft edges and there's high and low spots with different vegetation and just like an entire ecosystem in there that, you're there for the birds, right? But you spend enough
Yeah,
time in there and you're like, well, every freaking coyote is in here. We bumping out. The amount of deer that we kick out of there is just bonkers. And it's easy to just sort of gloss over that kind of stuff and be dismissive of it. And then when you wade in, I think it's kind of like the version of being, 8 or 9 years old and your buddies ride your bikes to the trout stream down the road.
yeah,
And somebody might show up there who's a fly fisherman and be like, well, is the hatch going off today? I'm going to tie on a caddis or whatever. And their focus is that where are the fish coming up? And then these boys are parked by the bridge and they're catching crayfish and frogs and just drowning worms for suckers and trout and whatever. And their experience is like, I'm excited about the entirety of this little environment because it offers so much different stuff
yeah,
instead of that single-minded focus of, I don't really care what this is. I just know the pheasants are there and I like to walk in and shoot them. It's a different thing.
yeah. Do you do you have any tips on traveling with dogs for an out of state bird hunt?
Uh, yeah. I mean, one of the things that people deal with a lot is there's a lot of stress and anxiety with dogs on traveling hunts, right? Especially dogs that don't do a lot of long drives. And
Uh-huh.
so you see a lot of dogs, they'll get diarrhea really bad because they're stressed out. So there's some supplements you can use for that, feeding programs. It's also just a matter of conditioning, right? My older lab now who's retired, she if she sees me pack up my hunting stuff for the night,
Uh-huh.
she will stay up all night. I mean, she
Yeah.
will be so by the time we're hunting the next day, she'll be so tired from the stress of not knowing whether I'm going to take her or the excitement of knowing she's going that I literally had to start packing and not let her see it. Like, and so you think about some of this stuff for them, you're going to load up and drive 10 hours to South Dakota or 15 hours or whatever. That is such a deviation from their routine that any way you can sort of soften the blow a little bit is great. A whole bunch of exercise before you take off, a planning to get them out and work them a little bit, let them stretch out, at this rest stop, at this place, whatever. You really have to sort of cater a lot of your trip to them, and it's hard to do, right? Like we're
Yeah.
dudes. We get on the road and we're like, I want to burn 18 hours and I want to get there and I want to kill a bunch of stuff. And it's like you generally can't do it that way because by the time you get there, your dog is going to be not what you need it to be. And
Right.
that's really important because you're going to go ask that dog to do a lot. And that's the other thing too, is a lot of people, they're like, well, I pheasant hunt South Dakota 5 days a year. That's my hunt, right? It's like, okay, well, your dog better be conditioned to hunt 5 days in a row. Because
Uh-huh.
otherwise, by day two, you still got to get out there and find those roosters because I spent all this money and this is our hunt. But your dog hasn't been conditioned for that
Right.
and literally physically can't do it. So many people who've gone on their first elk hunt are like, I'm a badass and it's going to be awesome. And I'm doing 10 days in the backcountry. And on day three, they're in town in a hotel and they did not get themselves ready. And we have a hard time looking at dogs that way because we look at our dogs like they're in such good shape and they run hard and everything. But you work with a lot of dogs, you can see the dogs that are just not conditioned. Even the
Uh-huh.
ones that are like live to retrieve. I mean, my brother-in-law has a lab, great shape. It's a year older than my younger dog, so I think she's 5. Fastest dog I've ever seen. She outruns my little dog like nothing, but
Oh
she can do
man.
about 5 retrieves and she's toast because she doesn't hardly ever get to do that. So you take
Yeah.
those 2 dogs hunting and they start out and that dog looks like it's going to go all day, and a couple hours into it that dog is smoked. So if you
Mm.
took that dog on a 5-day trip, you'd really be you'd be in trouble after day 1. And so that conditioning aspect is huge.
Do you think the dog's maturity has something to do with the you know how dogs get out of the truck and you think their pads are going to come off, they're running so hard as soon as they get out. And then you'll see the old dog that's just checking those soft edges and the little sloughs and they're making sure they cover everything. Do you think that that happens with maturity with dogs, or do you think that just kind of
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can see how efficient, prime age dogs get. Young dogs, they don't understand energy preservation,
Yeah, not at
but
all.
old dogs definitely do. And there's a big difference, but again, they only have so much in the tank. And so no
Yeah.
matter how efficient they are, if they are not really well conditioned, eventually that's going to show.
Yeah. Do you so if you are out of state hunting with your dog, how do you take the time to rest the dog? Are you hunting mornings and evenings and giving them in between, or to keep it shorter in the morning, shorter in the evening?
This is I'm almost embarrassed to admit how long this took my buddies and I to figure out.
Uh-huh.
But so just as an example, in Minnesota, we can start pheasant hunting at 9 in the morning and hunt
Okay.
till sunset. So by the end of the season, you're only talking a 7.5 hour day,
Yeah.
but you're hunting in 6, 7 foot tall cattails.
Right.
A lot of times there's a lot of snow. A lot of
Uh-huh.
times there's a lot of water to get through, and it is a challenging environment. It
Uh-huh.
just is.
Yeah.
And we would go really, really hard. And it wouldn't take very long before you'd realize that we went from having 7.5 hours of pretty good hunting with our dogs down to 5, down to 3. And so we've started to just slow down in the morning, and we don't have to get out there right at 9. Like, what if we go have breakfast, eat some pancakes, whatever,
Yeah.
let the dogs rest up, and we get those good 4 hours in the afternoon when the birds are coming back in and, they're not all sitting in the cornfield on private feeding away. And so we do really manage them that way. Now, there are situations where, let's say you have a early November CRP type hunt, grass hunt, where they're not in the cattails yet,
Uh-huh.
and the temperature is 30 degrees and it's just perfect.
Uh-huh.
You can get a lot out of a dog that way. But if it's
Yeah.
65 degrees, it's a different story,
Yeah,
right?
they're done.
And so it's just like us. I mean, one thing that I really learned when I started working out a lot, running a lot, was I will run outside if it's 100 degrees. I actually like running in the heat. I don't
Yeah.
know why, but you're not going to go do a 14 miler.
Nope.
You just can't. And so you're like, I'm going to go do 4.5 or 5 or whatever. And by the end of it, you are smoked, right?
Uh-huh.
But if it's 58 degrees and the wind isn't blowing and it's just perfect, you're like, I feel like I can go forever. It's like, well,
Yeah.
duh. So different with our dogs,
Yeah. Well, it's that's so true. I was doing 9-mile shed hunts with my pup, and he took him on a leash walk the other day, half an hour, and it was so a 9-mile shed hunt in 45 degrees, and then he's ready to go do another one as soon as you get home. Took him for a half-hour walk in 70 degrees the other day, and he was out, like,
Oh,
I'm done. Um, so we did a lot of talking about birds and a lot about dogs, and I know this is, I want to be sensitive to your time because you're getting back out for turkey. So I'm just going to ask you a couple things about bass, and I'll let you get off here early.
we can talk as long as you want, buddy.
So we'll do a hard turn to fishing. Not really though, because when we're talking about bass, you talk about a lot of the same things that you hunt with, and I know that's something you really do in your writing is you use bass fishing because it relates to a lot more people, I think, than hunt. There's a lot more people that fish than hunt, and I think that's a really good way for people who are interested in hunting to understand, like, oh, deer use points, deer use
Right.
edges. What are the bass relating to today? Is it wood? Is it rock? And deer are kind of the same way. So I think when you talk about bass, you can almost turn around and just fill the word in with deer. Um, so but for fun, when you fished, what circuit did you fish with?
So when I started out tournament fishing, I fished a series called the Minnesota Pro-Am Bass Tour, and then I fished the Walmart BFLs,
Okay.
fished the Team Supremes, fished FL, or they were Everstarts then. So it just depends,
Yeah.
all of those, I guess I don't even know how many of them even exist anymore.
Yeah.
But it was a very good time in my life to learn a lot about fishing, but man, I made it stressful.
Because you wanted to win.
Because I was a drunken idiot at that point in my
Ah,
life.
I always
And
forget this.
so I didn't take care of myself, and I just pushed myself. I know everybody says this, like, I really just don't do moderation well. If I find something I like, I just tend to kind of go pretty deep. And especially at that point in my life, that was 20 some years ago. All I wanted to do was fish until bow season opened up. And
Yeah.
all I did was fish until bow season opened up every day. And I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle the travel and the stress and,
Yeah.
going to school full time and working. And it was a lot. And it really, I'll tell you, I fish maybe a couple random tournaments a year now, just for fun, and I do so much better now because I don't put pressure on myself. And it's like that kind of thing, because I don't care. I'm not fishing for points. I'm not working toward a championship.
Sure.
I go out for one day and it's like, well, I'm going to try to put together a good bag, gonna have
Yeah.
fun. I don't really care. Like, you like to do well, right?
Yeah.
But it's not like I don't have there's nothing riding on it, I don't go out and finish last play. Like, I don't care. Who cares, right?
Yeah.
But it was such a lesson for me because I did the same thing for deer hunting, especially when I was starting out as a freelance writer and I was really focusing on the public land thing, I put so much pressure on myself to, like, you have to go, you have to scout, you have to hunt every second you can, like just this sort of like Terminator mindset. And it took the fun right out of it. And I've done
Yeah.
that. I do that with a lot of stuff and it's so stupid. And if you can just get to like a comfort and a confidence level with some of the stuff where you can just kind of let it breathe and be like, I'm going to go do this today, right? Like I'm going to scout. I'm going to go on that out of state deer trip or whatever. But it's not that big of a deal if you don't fill a tag. Like go have some fun, enjoy where you're
Uh-huh.
at, try to figure it out because that part's cool. And dude, when I started sort of leaning that way in my life, because the other way would have given me a heart attack when I was 30. Like it's too much.
Yeah.
I've become so much more successful. And
Uh-huh.
it's just like I don't know. I don't know if telling people that does anyone any good because I think it's something that you just personally have to go through, right? I just mentioned that I used to drink a lot. I run into functioning alcoholism all the time and I
Yeah.
understand it very well.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's like a spouse who's like, man, I wish he would quit drinking. I've
Right.
been asking him, I've been telling him, whatever. It's like, nobody can do that for you. You can't ultimatum that shit into reality. It just doesn't
Right.
work that way. You have to make that decision for yourself. And I think that I've gone on way off on a tangent here, but
No, do it.
I think that we don't realize how much agency we have over all of our lives. It's easy to kind of be a victim and be like, my boss sucks, or my friends won't travel with me, so I can't go hunt, or, like fill in the blanks. But in every aspect of our life, whether it's catching some bass or shooting a deer or quitting drinking, it's most of the enjoyment of that will start. Most of the success will start between your ears.
Yeah.
It's just it has to be in you first, and then the other people can be great about whatever aspect I'm talking about, but you kind of just got to take responsibility for it and go like, okay, I've gone so hard with the deer thing. I'm not really like I really kind of don't want to go out anymore. I don't want to hunt these conditions or those conditions or whatever. You're burning yourself out. That's on you. Okay. Take a step back. What do you have to do to be different about that and find that enjoyment again? And I hate, being a part of the hunting industry and sort of pushing the the message of how to and this method, that method,
Yeah.
like here's how you kill it. Here's what matters. Hit list bucks, trophies. Because it's like an easier sell than being like, hey, go sit in the woods and shut your phone off and enjoy yourself. Or
Yeah.
go find some bass to sight fish for an afternoon with your buddy or your nephew or whoever. And like, it doesn't matter if you post a picture on the gram of a 6-pounder or not. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Just go plug yourself into that environment and just relax a little bit and enjoy it for what it is. Because I know this sounds cliched, but man, it's a gift. And I think, I've talked about this so much, but this sort of resident, non-resident thing that we have going on where we're
Yeah.
so adamant about taking away opportunities for anybody who lives across state lines. You're taking away an absolute gift from somebody that you wouldn't accept if a non-hunter was doing it. Right? Like
Right.
if the antis come in and they're like, we don't want any more non-resident hunting or any more deer hunting in this state or that state or whatever, you'd be like, are you kidding me? I'm gonna throw up a pair of middle fingers and walk away. We wouldn't tolerate that.
Right.
But if we're hunters and we're paying the taxes of this state, all of a sudden we can take away that opportunity and feel justified about it. And man, our chickens are going to come home to roost on this in a way that's going to be so bad for the next generations. And I just don't think I think it's such a short-sighted thing.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Especially, well, I live in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is a super resident friendly hunt. I mean, you can buy a tag for $125 and then get doe tags for $25, and you can buy a ton of them, depending on where you're hunting. And there's or not disease management, deer management program places where they're trying to bring the population down inside of specific units. And um, the thing that they did tighten up on this year a little bit was the elk. The elk draw is a little bit harder for a non-resident, but it's still a 10% chance in a random draw. Like, and we have very large bulls in PA. But it's kind of weird because then, I'm like, well, I want to go to Colorado, and now that's harder,
Right.
and and it like you said, it's only going to get harder because Wyoming's putting restrictions on that are going to reciprocate Colorado because not as many people can go to Wyoming as easily. So now everybody's like, oh, well, my other option is Colorado. So shit flows downhill. So that's kind of how it's going with that kind of thing, and it does suck because what you said about when you're just translating into life, and I'm glad you talked about that because this doesn't need to be like questions and answers and how to's, but people keep asking. I can draw for Iowa next year. I could draw this year, but I have other things I want to do. So I'll draw next year. And people are like, well, what are you going to wait for? And I'm like, well, I'm probably not going to shoot a 120 on the first day because I don't want to end my hunt. Not because I don't want to shoot a deer. Quite honestly, I don't really want to come home with an empty tag. So if I come home with a legal buck from Iowa,
Right.
I'm probably not going to be upset about it. My goal would be to go there and shoot a buck that's Pope, and people are like, well, that's little. Like, dude, I just want to go to a place. I have some really good areas that I can deer hunt here, and I get to see things deer do, like running and chasing and doing all this cool stuff. But I do want to go to Iowa, and I know it's different there. Everybody's like, you can watch bucks fight while you're, all this cool stuff. I want to experience that part just as much as I want to kill a deer. So yeah, I'm probably not going to shoot a 120 on the first day because that's, how that is. You have a little bit less motivation to get into the tree the next day. But I don't really have a goal for the size of deer that I'm going to hunt there because I just want to go have a good time.
Are you going to hunt public?
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, a lot of people like to weigh in on, what you should shoot there.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I drew in 2020 and I drew last year.
Yeah.
And I hunted the same area, and the difference in the caliber of deer I could find and the difference in pressure was incredible.
Yeah.
And it's not non-resident pressure. It's the same amount of tags that there always is there, which is almost none.
Right.
When people talk about that stuff, they generally don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
You might go down there and you might get into them and you might encounter giants, right?
Uh-huh.
But you might also have one hell of a hard time finding a 120 incher to walk by you.
Yeah.
And people don't get that. And Iowa is sort of like a microcosm of the greater hunting industry where it's like, yeah, Iowa's a great state to hunt. It's super fun. I've drawn 4 tags there and killed 4 bucks and had a blast every freaking time for sure. But it's also the social media posts, the hunting shows, everything that comes out of Iowa will give you the impression that Iowa is easy.
Right.
And Iowa has a lot of big bucks everywhere. But most of those deer are coming off of private land.
Right.
Most of them are coming off of tightly controlled private land. A lot of them are coming off of outfitted hunts. And very few of them are coming out of public land hunts. And a lot of the big bucks you see that are killed on public in Iowa are killed by residents who have a lot of time to work them. And so it's just not as easy as people think. But it is fun going into it knowing, like, man, if I do my work, I'll probably get around that Pope and Young buck at some point.
Yeah.
And you might get into a little wad of them that's just on fire,
Yeah.
But you might go down there during the rut and have your entire plan laid out like I did last year. I mean, I was pre-rut hunting, but my first 4 spots I showed up to had trucks on them. And I was like, okay, well, this is a different game than the last time I was here because I almost dealt with no pressure. I was there a little earlier the last time.
Yeah.
So it was kind of no man's land in middle October. But I was like, okay, every day that I'm here, I'm seeing more activity.
Yeah.
And every spot that I'm walking into has some level of human presence. And so it's just not so cut and dry, but again, it's just fun to figure out. It's just fun to go there. And it's like, there's something just so mentally, it's just so exciting about drawing that Iowa tag and going, I'm going to give myself 8 days or 10 days or whatever. And I'm going to go have that fun with it. Cause you're one thing about Iowa is you're going to find deer. Like you're going to, like they're there.
Yeah. And I think Well, and I think the practice is I hate when people compare like, oh, if I hunt Pennsylvania because it's a hard state, I can hunt anywhere. I don't really think that. I think that if you say that and you're a guy who hunts a couple knock on door properties or something, you probably will struggle a little bit. Um, but I understand how people hunt on public, so I think that
Right.
that's a huge leg up when you're hunting public is knowing whether or not knowing how people might use the area or their access or trail, that kind of thing.
I mean
Um,
that's just a pressured deer thing. I mean,
yeah,
and what you said there is so true. Like I hear Michigan hunters say that all the time.
yeah,
Like I could do it anywhere. It's like maybe,
yeah, yeah,
if you're killing pretty good deer on Michigan public land consistently, you could probably go anywhere and do it. You could probably
yeah,
head out west and kill elk in the mountains, right? But if you're hunting a really good piece of private land that's
uh-huh,
managed, how is that different than a really good piece of private land somewhere else? Like I don't think I think pressured deer, like really pressured deer, if you hunt them, that translates to pressured deer just about anywhere. Because
yeah,
their whole thing is getting away from people, and your
right,
whole thing is figuring out where do they go to get away from people.
yeah,
It's different when you're like, well, I have a place where I just work the deer, because those rules don't apply to pressured deer. You're not just hunting deer on natural patterns. You're hunting deer that are specifically trying to stay away from a whole bunch of people.
yeah. That's why I like October so much better than I mean, I've had some good hunts. Obviously, if you hunt the rut, you're gonna have like, some good hunts here and there, or terrible hunts. But that end of October, that like I don't know, maybe the 20th, 22nd, sometime around there is when I really like to start. That's when it really cools down here. You get to like 10, 11. We're this year it was 80 degrees still then, which I know you've convinced me a couple times to get into a tree in 80 degrees, and I always have fun, but you that end is you really start to see a lot of stuff, but a lot less people still.
Right. I Dude, I'm starting to lean hard on October.
Uh-huh.
And I actually I don't know if I'll draw it this year, but I applied for a Kansas tag, and because of my schedule with Meat Eater, I kind of think I'm going to go down super early when it's going to
Uh-huh.
be like 90 degrees every day and just try to kill one on water and suffer through the bugs and the misery, because I
Yeah.
don't think anybody else will be out. And I think some of the stuff that I've scouted, I think it's possible.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's sort of, that's sort of like a test of your own will there, if you can get past it and go hunt in those conditions. But
Yeah.
you know that most people won't. So you have that little window where you can actually work the deer naturally on public land. And that's a huge advantage. And you know that they're going to get thirsty. So,
Yeah. Well, and that's something here too. I've had such a good luck with is hunting during the opening week because it, there's plenty of people out in the opening week because of the excitement. They're like, oh, it's the first week of bow season, whatever. So everybody gets out, but they don't go that far still. And I
right,
feel like all the hunting apps and stuff, the how far you go, and people are really into their health and stuff now too. Not everybody, but there's a lot more of it. Especially that people that are hunting that are my age are really, you know, they're tech savvy, so they know how to use the stuff the tools that they can use on their phone, and B, they're not really afraid to go very far anymore because nobody thinks they're going to get lost anymore.
right.
That's just a theory, but when it's 75 degrees, people hopefully are thinking about being responsible and like, do I think I can get a deer out fast enough? If I'm hunting way back here and it's 80 degrees and I've got to find them and then pack them out and all this kind of thing. People don't really go back that far in heat. Heat is a huge,
Right.
huge pressure relief for deer.
That's why I love it.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but I think the other thing too is I am planning for the Iowa thing. I'm planning to, like I said, I'd like to bird hunt this year, and in part, it's going to be, you know, really, I want to bird hunt, so I'll be bird hunting, but being able to see some stuff that's huntable for deer, what kind of crowds might show up, and then I am planning to go shed hunting there next spring, do a little scouting, just so I know, the lay of the land and that kind of things. I'm thinking that'll help.
That'd be a good idea. You can
Yeah.
also, depending on where you're gonna hunt, it's almost a guarantee that you could get a 4th season turkey tag in a lot of places in
Okay.
Iowa. That's a good way to get yourself out there and cover some ground too.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And we did get off on a tangent. We were talking bass fishing, but I'm always down to talk whatever when it comes to hunting and fishing, man. Um, for the fishing thing, if you're going to approach a new body of water, what is your biggest strategy when we're just talking bass?
You know, man, I've started to use, satellite imagery a lot. Um, just
That's
look
cool.
for structure, and I don't know I don't know how many people listening to this have messed around with onX's fish app yet. It's
Hmm.
it's new, and I don't think they're covering Pennsylvania yet. It's mostly Midwestern states.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting, like, it's pretty freaking cool,
Oh, cool.
uh, but it allows you to sort of overlay satellite imagery with, uh, rock piles, hazards, whatever, and so if I'm going someplace new, I'm like, where are the big depth changes? Where is like the vegetation like lines? Like where is like the rock piles? Where are the points? Where is just like the interesting stuff to start with, you
Hmm.
know? And it's like to me, one of the reasons I like that is because it feels just like going somewhere to public land and hunt whitetails. Like
Yeah,
I mean, it's
exactly.
it's less pressure, but, you're like, "Okay, well, is it the end of May, up here in the North Country, and they're gonna be maybe on beds?" That's a different thing, right?
Hmm.
Is it July 4th weekend, and there's gonna be a million boats out there by 9 o'clock, so I gotta find some rock piles to throw a topwater over at first light? Maybe it's August, and it's a deep weed line thing, like, that changes things. But I like interesting stuff. Like
Yeah.
where's the depth changes? Where are the rocks? Where this meets that? You know?
Yeah. Do you have a favorite way to fish? I know you talk about top water a lot, but is that your favorite?
Well, if it's on, it's pretty tough to beat. I
Yeah.
like that with the kids because it's just so fun.
Yeah, they can see
Um,
it.
I like I like it a lot, but I really like throwing a Ned rig or something, flipping jigs, something on the bottom that I can sort of feel things out. I feel like
Yeah.
I don't do a ton of chunk and wine fishing. Some people are
Yeah.
just I'm throwing spinner baits all day or, swim baits or whatever. I like that stuff for finding
Yeah.
fish, but I've really gotten into, cover water that way, pick up a smallie and go, okay, why was he here? And then really work that spot. And I did this last year. We have a place on a lake in north central Minnesota,
Yeah.
and I almost always fish with kids. So it's like I don't do a lot of exploring anymore because I kind of know the spots and I'm like, I don't know. I just kind of know it, right?
Right.
But last year I just had this random weekend. It was either the beginning of September or late August, but at a point when our fish start to school up, we're far enough north where they're going to put the feed bags on and start grouping up then. And some of my places where I'm like, we can always pick up a fish here or there. I'm like, I'm gonna learn these. What's the bottom got going on? And man, I went to one spot and picked up a smallie on topwater like I usually do there, and
Uh-huh.
I started throwing a Ned rig in just to see, and I could feel some weed growth, and I hit a little patch of sand, and I caught 9 fish in a row,
Oh
and
man.
I was like, I could run a topwater over it, and that was done.
Uh-huh.
But if you just drug it through where they were laying, and I've seen that on the that we do that kind of stuff on the Mississippi a lot when we're fishing tournaments there. It's like
Yeah.
you'll have a smallie blow up on a current break or something, and you're like, okay, that's cool. And then you start flipping it and you're like, oh, okay, there's a whole school of them down there. And sometimes they come up because the shad washed through or something, but a lot of times they're just down and either looking down because they're eating crayfish or they're just not coming up for whatever reason. Sun's too high, something like
Uh-huh.
that. But you can flip that tube in there, flip a jig or something, shake a drop shot in there, and then all of a sudden you feel that little sand drop, bang, there they are. And
Yeah.
sometimes you catch tons of fish out of there. And you're like, it's
Yeah.
the size I can see it. It's like the size of a pickup truck or something. Or, last year we fished this frog only tournament down there on the river
That's
and
cool.
we found, we're just going along the lily pads and, the scum throwing frogs in there and we saw these fish blow up off of this little kind of feeder channel coming into this they call it a lake. It's just a backwater lake.
Yeah.
And what we realized was there was one little patch of lily pads that had current in it, and nothing else there did. And there was a school of largemouth stationed on that was wild. I mean, it was just like you could throw to that patch over and over and over, and every
Oh, cool.
20, 25 casts, one of them would just come up and eat that frog. And it was like, it's such a lesson on how quickly we like move over things. Like I think
Uh-huh.
about this a lot. That example to me, we milked that school almost the whole day because
Yeah.
they just kept coming up, and there was enough good fish in there where we're like, probably not going to win, but maybe get a check. But I think about that with the messaging around deer hunting is find that target buck and work him, right? Well, you're on public land in a state you've never been to, and it's like, okay, well, what if you can't find that area that just has the thigh size rubs, huge tracks, see him, where you're just like, this is a big buck bedroom, right? Because that
Yeah.
happens a lot. Like
Right.
it just does. And so it's like you actually have to just start with deer. Like, where
Uh-huh.
is a concentration of deer? And you see this in the big woods all the time where you're like,
Yeah.
I literally just need to find deer first before I can do anything. And I
Yep.
think a lot of people sort of spin their wheels a little bit and they're like, well, yeah, there's some sign here, but it's not big buck sign. So what do I do? And it's like, n- if there's deer there like that, you're probably around one of the better bucks in the area. Like, figure those deer out first before you're like, I'm going to write this off because it doesn't have A, B, or C. And
Yeah.
I think people miss that a lot. Not only traveling to hunt, but just like hunting in general. They kind of assume that they're not around big deer or they're not around the right deer or whatever because of, the trail camera's not showing it. The sign isn't showing it. I'm like, yeah, they're probably there. Like, you're
Yeah.
probably just missing something.
Well, I don't remember when you said it. I think you were on a podcast with Clint and you said like, maybe earlier in the season, 3 does will go by and you'll see a spike or a forkhorn. At some point, there's probably going to be a big one there.
Right.
And it's the same thing with fish. Maybe we get a little bit thrown off with fish because people be like, "Well, if it's a school of fish and you catch a 4-pounder, that's probably all 4-pounders." But that's not always the case because just like you were talking about, when you're picking something apart, I remember I was fishing on Cayuga Lake and we found a rock pile in the middle of the lake, like the middle of the north part of the lake, and one of us caught a bass on a jerk bait. So we decided we're going to slow down. We see this, like, it's a big rocky weed pile or whatever. So we put on like ounce tubes and we were going to crack tubes on it. I ended up catching like 400 chain pickerel. And the guy I was with was bringing bass in on every catch, but every one was different, like a pound and a half, 2 pounds, 4.5, 3 pounds. And the last one he caught was 5 pounds. I was taking a picture of it and lightning struck and I was like, dude, we gotta go. I mean, this
Right.
storm, when you're on big lakes like that, storms just roll in. And he was doing 70 on the way back to the house in his boat, and there was just lightning all around the house. Like, I'm gonna die.
Yep. No
That's
good.
that's a scary thing. But I think that's for deer and for bass, that's so important because just because there's a little one there does not mean, and especially in the big wood setting, does not mean that the big one's not showing up at some point.
Right. Well, I mean, that example there, so there, you have the cover or the
Hmm.
structure, I should say.
Yeah.
And then you probably have some kind of food source there that's just popping off, right? That's
Yeah.
why there's so many fish there. So there's
Right.
crayfish molting or something,
Yep.
minnows pushed up against it. There's something going on. And like, as soon as you were talking about that, what it made me think of was that Oklahoma hunt I did with Steve 2 years ago,
Oh yeah.
where, I mean, I found deer, but it was
Uh-huh.
tough, like really tough. But I found one little spot, bunch of acorns, bunch of the right cover, far enough away from where you park where not everybody's going to get there, and then one random persimmon tree in the woods that was just on. And there were deer of all sizes there, and
Yeah.
many of them, more deer than we found. I mean, the first day I got there, I put 25,000 steps on and found very little to work with.
Yeah.
I did not feel good about it. That was one of the last spots that I found. We killed 3 bucks out of there, and it was super fun because you knew they were going to come through. And so you look at that and go, there was nothing that told me good bucks were there.
Right.
I found one little tiny rub in there. There's some tracks, but it was all dry.
Yeah.
But there was just sign that deer were browsing in there. And you get in there and you're like, there's a high concentration of deer right here, right now because of the food. That's it.
Yeah.
And you could go walk so much of that. And I mean, I found a couple rubs and a couple scrapes, and I covered so much ground. So it was
Yeah.
like you couldn't work sign, like you just, traditional sign, it just wasn't going to happen. And the timing of the
Right.
whole thing. But it's sort of the same thing, right? Like you find that situation where it's just popping off right there, and
Mhm.
everybody's going to show up,
Yep.
and I think for most people, that's a better bet than being like, I'm a big buck specialist and I don't do it until I find this or that or whatever. A lot of places you won't find that. And a lot of us are hunting smaller pieces of ground where it's like you might have 1/20th of a big buck's home range.
Yeah.
He might not set foot on that place, for a month. And so
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, you're not, you literally can't hunt what's not there. But maybe there's a corner where the oaks are dropping or something. Like there's always something usually to work with if you start digging in a little bit. But that's one of the reasons why I like having lots of land to roam and I like fishing big lakes. Like
Yeah.
eventually you find something.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too that I'm thinking about while we're talking about this is like just kind of like relying on an old technique, you know. Um, it's not uber popular to hunt rub lines anymore, and scrapes are always in and out of favor. Or people are looking for big buck beds instead of traditional deer funnels. That kind
Right.
of thing. It's the same thing in bass fishing. If you're using the jitterbug that they used I mean, you can still catch giant fish on a jitterbug,
Right.
but nobody's throwing it. So sometimes you can go back and rely on that kind of stuff too. Like you said, you didn't find any traditional deer sign in that area you were hunting with Steve. You kind of just had to go off something different. And sometimes falling back on an old technique it can be the trick on that kind of thing too.
Well, right. And I mean, if you look at like I love rubs, right? Like I'll hunt
Yeah.
a rub line. I'll hunt rubs a
Yep.
lot more than I will scrapes, but none of that stuff exists in a vacuum. If you have a really good rub line, it's probably like there's probably more going on, right? Like it's going to be in the cover, of course.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Uh there might be at some point where it crosses a washed out gully or something, so there's a pinch point there. It might take you through something, that has that mass dropping or whatever. Like there's usually multiple factors that go into it. There's a reason a buck wanted to be there and mark it up as his territory. He feels safe, right? He's more callable in there. He's comfortable, and there's going to be a whole bunch of factors that come together. So when somebody's like, I don't really focus on this, right? Like I do this. I'm like, well, it's not just hunting rubs. Just like being a bed hunter, it's not. You don't just go find a big bed and hunt it.
Right.
Like you're paying attention to the conditions and seasonal timing and a whole bunch of stuff. Like that cornfield down the road that gets picked changes that bed today.
Yep.
Like why? Well, because he's not going to be there anymore, or he's going to bed closer to this or farther into the cover. And so a lot of that stuff that, you know, we follow these trends. This is the cool
Mm-hmm.
thing. That's the cool thing,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Like it still all just falls back to like really basic woodsmanship and understanding the environment you're in and how those animals are going to use it.
Yeah, I mean the bed isn't going to do you any good if it's not the right time of year or whatever it happens to be. It should be a tool in your box.
Right.
If you've had the opportunity to scout the area and know there's this bed that's there, you should use it. But it's just remember I went on that Ohio hunt when I was way back when I was on your Hunt for Real podcast, and we talked about getting close or whatever. I was so into that trendy thing, like, oh, got to find the area where the buck is bedding. And at some point, I wasn't finding deer. And at some point, I'm like, I just need to go to a point with a freaking oak tree because there's sign all around
Right.
these oak trees, and then boom. Now I saw 6 bucks in one night when I was there. But that's the same kind of idea is like you have to just use your tool bag. You can't just say because ex expert hunter would say just stick with that bed for 5 days. That might not be in your wheelhouse yet, or might not be the right tool to use.
Right. I mean, just think of the difference in wind direction makes for bed hunting.
Yeah.
It's everything. I mean, last year, I know Mark had the same situation. I don't know if you guys did or not, but we had a weird situation during the rut where we had a ton of south wind.
Yeah.
And it was like,
We had a lot
it
of south wind. Yeah.
absolutely destroyed so many of my plans because, and I never even considered it, right? Like I wasn't scouting to set up for south winds during the rut. I'm like, I take this as a given that we're going to have north and west winds, and that's the game I'm going to play. And then you get, November shows up and it's warmer than usual, and all of a sudden the wind's blowing out of the south every day. And it's like those deer are literally not doing what I expected them to do, and I'm
Uh-huh.
like stuck. Like I got to figure something out. And so you think about, you know, relying too heavy on, a buck bed strategy, especially on the road. Like
Uh-huh.
you can play that game at home a lot better. But you
Yeah.
go out on the road and you're like, I'm going to identify not only a specific bedding area that he's using a lot, but individual beds.
Yeah.
Good luck, man. Like that's,
Yeah.
and I'm sure some people can do it, but that's tough.
Yeah. Well, and that you kind of miss out on, like you said, you weren't even really thinking about south winds. I hunted a lot of high elevation this year, and it was dry as a bone here. That was stupid.
Right.
I had a buddy that was like, I'm not hunting any of my spots. And he basically went to the drawing board. Like, of course, he walked through it and knows the area well or whatever, but he literally hunted where people would say you can't hunt because the thermals are the thermals are going to swirl, you're going to get busted. Dude, he hunted low. I mean low, almost in the creek beds. And he was seeing like freaking 7-8 bucks every time he went out. I don't know every time, but he was seeing a lot of bucks most nights that he was out, and he was seeing good bucks too.
That I just wrote about that. That was the whole key to killing my buck in Iowa last year.
Yeah, the water.
Yeah, I mean they were in the valleys, they were in the low ground because there was lush vegetation and there wasn't lush vegetation anywhere else. And everywhere else is where people were hunting. And so it just had two things going for it. And every buck that I saw, even though they were chasing some and there was some rut activity going on, they were browsing. The buck I killed came
Yeah.
into a decoy, but he browsed his whole way in. And then finally, when he crossed the river, he came in grunting. But he saw that doe decoy out on that riverbed, and he just fed
Yeah.
on that broadleaf, nettles and some other stuff on the river bottom. And then finally he came in, but it was like, it just put the deer where there, like
Yeah.
they weren't in the places that like the ridge tops and stuff where I expected them to be when I got there. It was just a different thing.
Yeah. Well, it's the same. This is another thing that can relate right back to fishing too, because you're dealing with drought with deer, but fish are the same way. So I live on a private lake, and they end up spraying for, well, I don't know what weed, Elliday or something like that. Some weed that begins with an E. They spray for it in July because it's people with pontoon boats don't like swimming in it or whatever.
It's not Eurasian milfoil, is it?
No, it's a native grass. It's like, it kind of looks like eelgrass to me. You know what I mean? But it's a real long, and it makes big mats, and people don't like it they don't like having it on the top of the water when they're swimming and getting their boat in it and whatever.
Right.
So they end up spraying, but they don't spray the entire lake. And there is some coontail and stuff like that. So when we'll fish, end of May into June, and there'll be fish everywhere. But then they're so concentrated when they don't have the good conditions. Smallmouth love the rocks, so then you can catch smallmouth easier because you can find shell beds and that kind of thing where they're hanging out. But if you want to fish for largemouth, it's almost easier because same thing with whitetails. If there's water when it's dry, they're not going to be that far away from it. I mean, they might not be right up against it, but they're
Right.
not going to be that far. And it's the same thing with bass. When you find the grass, when they sprayed and there's no more grass, they're in the grass.
Right.
But I think it's not really an overlooked thing, but it's something you forget. It's something I forgot this fall. Oh, I should really think about places I could hunt that have water. But then,
Right.
because you've scouted all this other stuff, you're like, well, I did all this work here, and this is where I want to shoot them. You can't always shoot them where you want to shoot them.
Right.
Sometimes you have to go to where they're at.
Dude, we paint this as a largely academic thing, right?
Uh-huh.
Like you're going to go here and hunt this time, and you're like, okay, they're going to be doing this, so I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And then you show up, and it is never what you expect. It is always something different. And
Yeah.
that I mean, once in a while you show up and you just have it right. Most of the time, you got to get in there and just figure it out in the moment.
Yeah, agreed. Well, dude, it is time for you to go get some revenge and a little bit of challenging yourself tonight, and go get that freaking turkey.
I'm going to try, buddy.
I hope you get him. Send me a picture if you do.
Will do, bud.
I don't think people know where to find you, but where's your favorite place for people to find you, dude?
Well, if they want to check out any of the content I produce, it's all at themeateater.com.
Uh-huh.
All the podcasts, articles, all of it. If they want to follow me on social, Instagram's where I'm at Tony J. Peterson. I don't post a lot because I hate it, but I will post some stuff. But yeah, if they want to read or listen or watch, I guess, over at themeateater.com.
You will know when there's a First Light sale, because
Oh, my
Tony will
God.
post about his First Light sale. All right, dude. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Well, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed from hearing from Tony as much as I did. Go ahead and head over to themeateater.com and take a look at all the great content that Tony's putting out. I think you'll really enjoy it, because I know I do. If you like what you hear from the show, give it a follow. Keep coming back for more. Share it around. I'd really appreciate it. Leave me a review and a rating. I'd also really appreciate that. You can touch base with me at the show email, incamppodcast@gmail.com. And you can see the latest updates on Instagram at incamp_podcast. Thanks again for tuning in, everyone. This is In Camp Podcast.